What's up everybody? Welcome to BoostVlogs. So I've been having some boost control issues lately, and I believe it's primarily due to the fact that I'm trying to run a lot more PSI than what my wastegate spring is. It's a 7-pound spring, and I'm trying to control the boost up to about 15 to 16 PSI. Basically what happens is the exhaust pressure gets very high and high RPM, high boost, and the softer 7-pound spring has a hard time fighting against it. So I've purchased a replacement. This right here is the factory 7 PSI wastegate actuator that came with my Garrett Turbo. And this is a TurboSmart IWG75 internal wastegate actuator. It's got a 10 PSI spring, but it's also advertised to have very good and precise boost control. So we're gonna strap it on, see if it works. I do not know yet if it's gonna be a direct bolt-on, but by the time I finish with it, it will be a direct bolt-on. I should probably elaborate a little bit when I say I'm having problems with boost control. Basically, I have electronic boost control through Megasquirt. It's controlled by an AEM electronic boost control solenoid, and you have a lot of options with the Megasquirt boost control. You can control obviously your boost level. You can control your boost level by throttle position and RPM, and you can control how aggressive your boost control is, how quickly you can, there's some little tricks where you can make the turbo spool up a little bit faster, but the more aggressive your boost control is, it gets more tricky to tune. So the problems that I'm having is a lot of times when I stab the throttle, I'll get overboost. It'll overshoot my target boost by 2 to 3 PSI, or I'll get underboosting, which obviously is, under a couple pounds. And if I make it less aggressive to get rid of the overboost, then I'll have problems with the boost being too low. So I'm hoping what that has to do with is the spring being too soft in the internal wastegate actuator. So hopefully this will help. So with the wastegate set up normally, just as it comes on the turbo, it runs about 6.9 PSI. You can see I have it preloaded here with washers. And what that's doing is preloading the actuator inside the spring, and it runs about 8 pounds if it's on wastegate pressure only. So that actually helped a little bit, having the spring stiffer like that, but it's not enough. So I'm gonna try this new actuator and hope it's golden. So I'm gonna start by removing the old actuator, and I'm gonna begin with this clip here. The clip's pretty easy to remove, but if you're not careful, it will fly into outer space, so be careful when you're removing that thing. Don't do that. Pull it right out. Well, the good news is the bolt pattern is the same as the Garrett, but the bad news is too long there for how far my bracket is away. So luckily this rod is threaded very far, so I'm just gonna go ahead and cut it to length and it'll fit. Clean up the threads on that cut. So I test fitted the arm, and now it is short enough, but the problem is there's no room for the jam nut to go up here. There's no threads left, so what I'm gonna do is just cut a little piece off of the clevis so there's room for the jam nut. I know you can't really see all the way in there, but if you do cut something like this threaded sleeve, you want to make sure that the threads go all the way down far enough so you don't, if this thing was only threaded this deep and I cut off this much, now I got no threads left, so you want to look inside there and make sure it's threaded all the way down before you cut it. A must-have for anyone's Dremel collection: the quick release cutting wheels. Spectacular. So the length is right now, but when it's mounted flat onto my bracket, it still doesn't quite line up with the wastegate flapper. So we got a rod cut down, we got the little bend in this, now it's fitting just perfect. And this is one thing you're gonna learn along the way when you're boosting your cars. Most parts you buy like this are not gonna be direct bolt-on, but it's simple enough to make them fit. Let's talk about wastegate spring preload. Now how I have this set up right here, I could just drop it onto the wastegate, perfect, golden, but what you wanna do is run a little bit of preload, a little bit of extra tension on your spring, because it's gonna help spool up and it's gonna help fight that exhaust pressure. I usually start with just about maybe do 1.5 turns of preload. You're gonna have to pull it a little bit to get it on there, Now it's got some tension to it. Now remember, when you preload your spring like that, you are going to have to retune your boost controller, especially if it's an electronic boost controller, or if you change your wastegate spring, change your wastegate actuator here, you're going to have to retune it because it will increase the boost as you preload it. And that's a trick. If you don't have a boost controller, if you have an adjustable rod like this, you can preload your wastegate actuator and get some more boost. While I'm in here, I'm also going to replace the vacuum line that runs to the actuator can. See this right here? This is your turbine housing, this is your manifold, this is your downpipe. 3 of the hottest things in your engine bay. Now, look right here. See how close this vacuum line is? Even though I have the protective heat wrap on it, it gets so hot and rubber loves to crack when it gets heat cycled like this. When you crack your wastegate line, you're gonna start running excessive boost, and if you don't have overboost protection, you're not paying attention, it can damage your engine. So not a bad idea to replace especially this line. Check this out. See how brittle that was? That's the old line that came off. Literally just broke it in half with 2 ounces of force. Alright guys, well there it is. That's how you install an internal wastegate actuator. And I'm not going to actually take it out and drive it just yet, but when I do, I'm thinking about doing a little video on some open loop boost control tuning basics in Megasquirt. So I will see you guys then.